to TBP Talks. It's a place where entertainment and information kind of clash. I'm your host, Sean, and the whole point of this podcast is to kind of give our listeners and our viewers something to take away from this, whether that is some new information, perhaps a different perspective on a topic you're already familiar with, or even something simple as the chills or a chuckle from some of the stories out there. So that being said, go ahead and introduce yourself. I've read your name several times, but I'm afraid I'm going to butcher it. So
it's Laurel Davis.
Laurel Davis. Okay.
Yes.
Our guest today is Laurel Davis, herbalist and entrepreneur, based right here in Lemhi County. So hello and welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So tell me about yourself. Originally from Canada, how did you find yourself in Idaho, and what kind of led you into your current field?
Well, when I was 15, my father was heavily involved with the Hutterites up in Canada. He sold his products to them, and they, did chiropractic and things like that. So he used to take me there as a 4-year-old, and then I had family members who were into alternative therapies from the late 1800s, early 1900s, and one of them became my mentor and paid for me to have a lifetime schooling through the Dominion Herbal College in Canada. And so I started that journey when I was pretty young, and as I grew older, I went to California a couple times, stayed there, and there's a health food store on every block, and I learned a lot while I was there as a teenager. And in Canada at that time, there were lots of naturopaths, herbalists, alternative doctors. There's no longer that in Canada, but I think we were some of the best in the world at that time.
Yeah.
And so I took thoroughbreds that were at the slaughterhouse. We have the largest slaughterhouse in North America in southern Alberta, and so I was rescuing them and fixing them up, getting them bred, ending up with registered thoroughbreds, giving them herbs, and my training as an herbalist had progressed, and so I started using it on my animals. And then I moved to the United States in 1994, and I started my company in South Florida. And I moved from South Florida to New Jersey. September 11th happened. We lived in a bedroom community outside of New York City, and I was a single parent with 5 children. And I wanted to move further west because my family's all west, and that was a really good motivating factor because it's so populated there. And so I brought the company with me each time I moved. I moved to Salmon, Idaho.
Wow.
Because it's quiet, there's 2 traffic lights. It's not, and because I was driving in Miami, New York City, New Jersey, Los Angeles, a lot of traffic, and I was just like, I'm over it.
Yeah, I believe that. I went to high school down in Florida. That's where I learned to drive. It was complete culture shock moving from somewhere like Florida.
Especially in the winter when the Canadians come down.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
anyway, so that's been my journey, and I've had the privilege and blessing to be able to provide herbal formula for some of the top competing jumping horses, show horses, race horses, rodeo horses in the world. And I've had horses racing in Dubai, the Triple Crown, using my formulas.
Oh, wow.
Trainers keep it a secret because they
don't want to give away their secret to
That's
success.
right.
You know,
That's
more
right.
competition now.
And and there's lots of good herb companies out there, but I think we're unique because we base the formulas off of the traditions of our ancestors.
Wow.
And so they used food as medicine, and they incorporated it into their diet very successfully. And we have had a lot of really great formulas that have proven themselves over 30 years.
Wow.
And then once we prove them with racehorses, because medical testing, a lot of it begins on racehorses, and then we put them on animals, and then we've made it available to humans. And like, I broke my back in May and really messed up my arm, and I took the formula that I had made 30 years ago for horses with broken bones or cannon bones, and I took it, and within 2 weeks I was back to work. I mean, it wasn't pretty, and I'm doing really well. I have no pain as long as I don't eat sugar or gluten.
Oh wow, excellent. Wow, that's
Yeah.
kind of incredible.
So yeah, and there's been like hundreds of horses where the owners or the trainers have reported the same thing.
Wow.
So when I broke my back, I thought, I'm going to do it. And so I did. So, I have a lot of respect for Mother Nature and for the plants that provide us with this. And like I said, we have a unique approach to what we do.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's wow. Amazing.
Thanks. Thank you.
So I'm gonna read to you basically the entirety of my knowledge about herbs, and you might have to fill in some gaps because I learned most of this today. So
Okay.
So an herb is a type of plant that's valued for its culinary, medicinal, or aromatic purposes or properties, often characterized by their non-woody stems. Herbs are typically used in cooking to enhance flavor of foods or as seasoning. In herbal medicine, they are used for their therapeutic properties. They give us some examples of common herbs like basil, parsley, cilantro, mint, etc. But aside that, so that's a very wiki kind of definition of the herb. But so, is there like a common herb out there that maybe you would recommend for humans or animals to use in their day-to-day, something that maybe the average person has access to that they might not know the benefits of?
Well, for example, parsley is high in chlorophyll and other low-level minerals, and but chlorophyll especially. So putting that in your diet, getting up, like say the night before when you go to bed, take fresh parsley. You can grow it on your windowsill. Pop the parsley, a few sprigs into water, and strain it. Drink it in the morning, and you're getting pure chlorophyll. And it's traditionally, because we can say legally, traditionally, according to what our ancestors told, without causing an upset with the medical profession, because we are not doctors.
Right.
We're just traditional herbalists who tell the stories of our ancestors and of other people. And so parsley is a good one, but if you feed it to your pets, just be aware if you give high doses of it, you can make your horse photosensitive to the sun.
To the sun?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
Is that until like sunburns or something? Or
yeah,
really?
yeah. Well, like some horses, like Paints, have a pink nose.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've never seen that, but it does like flush fluids from the body, so it does have some effect on the kidneys. Not real strong. Like you can soak your feet in it, a parsley tea if you don't want to drink it. You can scrub your body with the water. You can rinse your hair with it, and it'll be good for your hair. Basil is really great for the immune system, traditionally anti-cancer. Like garlic, of course, builds the immune system, helps rid the body of excess mucus, parasites. Cloves, I take cloves every night before bed. I take 2 capsules. It doesn't taste that good, or I take it in a powder. A lot of my formulas are in powder form, but that's a natural pathogen killer in the body. Parasites, fungus, candida, so I take holy basil, ginger, cloves, a few different mushrooms, and I take a lot of stuff.
Oh, wow.
But I'm 66 years old. I've had a lot of bangs in my life, and I've had a very hard working life, and different things have happened to me, and I always turn to the herbs. I go to chiropractor, acupuncture, cranial sacralists, massage therapist, naturopath, and then a functional medicine doctor. So that's how I take care of myself.
Oh, wow.
You know, when I broke my back, I went to the ER, but I'm not opposed to drugs. But like my mentor that, you know, paid for my schooling, her parents, she was my relative, had a hospital in Canada, I think in Victoria, in the late 1800s. And that hospital was run using traditional medicine and then whatever modern medicine was available. And I personally think that's how hospitals should be run.
Yeah.
If you come in with something chronically wrong, you should have healthy, dense nutrition in every meal they feed you, access to whatever vitamins, minerals, or herbs that you need, and massage and acupuncture while you're in the hospital, and the allopathic medicine, the modern medicine as needed, whatever. The doctors used to be trained in both methods. In 1921, the pharmaceutical industry was taken over and the College of Physicians and Surgeons was divided. So medical doctors could no longer study naturopathic medicine. So the naturopaths remained being doctors, but they lost their ability to practice in hospitals. So you have to go to, you know, part of the med school, I think 4 years or something like that, to be a naturopath, and then the medical doctors carry on with the allopathic medicine, and the naturopaths go into the holistic medicine fully. So they have a lot of training. You know, they have to be able to deliver a baby and all that.
Yeah, wow.
So it's about the money, because the pharmaceutical industry is.
About the money.
It's about the money.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we could work together, and we should work together.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly. I'm definitely not a fan of the way most of America seems to be running the medical system.
Well, it's
right?
the world.
You know,
It's the whole world.
And it's definitely, it's almost problematic in a way where you get hurt and you don't want to go seek help because you can't afford it. You know, but now it's difficult to say pay for insurance when you have a low income job, when you have to make the decision of, well, do I pay my insurance so I can get my medication, or do I eat this month? You know what I mean? So,
That's right. And I was an immigrant, and you know, my husband was a U.S. citizen, but our marriage ended, and I couldn't leave the country with the two youngest that I had born. So, being a single mother of 5, I supported them from my herb company, and I was never able to have health insurance as long as my children had health insurance, and I wasn't allowed a bank account.
oh, wow.
Or they take the money, you know, from the bank account. So, it's Canada's great because you can have, you know, everybody has, you know, access to health care, but the health care has gone down. You know, you have to wait 3 years to get a knee replacement or, you know, whatever. I could tell you many stories, but that's off the topic. But that's why I so strongly encourage anybody that's listening to learn what's in your cupboard. Like, I'll give you an example. I had 15 thoroughbreds, you know, rescues, breeding them. They were having foals. And the best mare I had, I was in a pickle. I needed some money, and I didn't want to, but I put this mare up for sale, and she was very well bred. And they came out to look at her, and while they were looking at her, the other mare kicked her into the fence, and she spiked an artery. It was just shooting out of her.
No.
And there was an old guy there, like, he was, you know, I think born in the late 1800s, because this was a long time ago, like almost 40 years ago. And he said, I'm going to go in and grab a bag of flour. So he grabbed a bag of flour, big bag, and it clotted it until the vet could get there.
Oh, wow.
Instead of it shooting out. And you can do things like vetiver's kind of an expensive essential oil, but you can put it in a syringe and gently shoot it into the wound. You can take cayenne pepper, which makes them mad because it stings, and that's a natural cauterizer. Or the Chinese invented gunpowder. So they knew how to blow a hole in somebody, then they had to figure out how to fix that hole.
Yeah.
So they invented Chinese patent medicine over 2,000 years ago called Yunan Biao. And so it's for gunshot wounds, knife wounds. You know, if you break your back or break your arm or you've got an old injury, you take it for 10 days and or you pack the wound with the powder, and then there's a little red pill, you take it and it'll stop the bleeding. It's a natural,
Wow.
it's a natural cauterizer. And so, you know, there's so many things you need to have in your medicine cabinet for yourself. And I would never say don't go to a doctor ever, because we need doctors. And there's times when absolutely essential. But if you're way out in the middle of nowhere, or you don't have time or something, you should have these things in your cupboard and know how to use them.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, many, thousands and thousands of people are waking up to that, and they're using that. But I just want you to know, look at your ancestors and how they, like my mom's turning 99. She has a better brain than me. She's amazing. She's such a character and so kind, very kind person. But so many, like, she's not a holistic person, but you know, she was raised on the farm. Everything they made and grew themselves. And she just had a really good start in life. Like, there were no pesticides, there were no sprays, you know.
Yeah.
And my generation and the younger generations are experiencing all kinds of toxicity. You know, like cancer has gone up over 300% in the last 4 years. And what are they called? Something type of deaths where people are dying for no reason, you know. And I wish I could remember that word. But anyway, that's the kind of stuff you need to take a look at. Like my mom, they made their own butter, they ate butter, they grew their own food, they grew their own eggs. You know, at 9 years old, she had a team of 4 horses. She was out doing the haying in the field.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I know. And she's 99. That wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
You know, and we were living like that. We were outside more. We were with the animals more. We were working hard more. And, you know, the men did jobs, the women did jobs, or if a woman found out she was on her own, she did the jobs for everybody. And the man too, sometimes that would happen to him. But, you know, a lot of people, you know, don't understand how rich our heritage is and how much knowledge there is there. And if you have an elder in your house or near, or a relative, go start interviewing them and write it down. Because you'll learn stuff about not just health and how to, you know, live simply, but you'll also learn a lot about psychological stuff. And they don't think they're being psychological. But the lessons they teach us, our elders are invaluable, and we should be like worshiping them rather than stuffing them away somewhere.
Right.
And that's what I believe.
Yeah,
and that's where, you know, I was taught a lot.
Yeah.
Because my grandfather was a vet, and he was of the old school natural vet care with whatever new stuff was available. He was a jockey in Scotland. He came over. He was 75 when he died. And it was a doctor error that killed him. And I was 15, so when was he born? Like in the late 1800s? And he knew, like my pony, he bought each of his grandkids a pony or a horse. And it was an old rusty nail. It was really long and very rusty, and it was quite thick. And it went up the frog of my pony, and he was deathly lame, like, you know.
Oh, no.
So my grandpa pulled it out. I had to hold him, and got my grandmother to heat up goose grease. So if they cooked a goose, they saved and strained the grease. If they cooked a beef, they saved and strained the tallow. If they cooked a pork, they saved and strained the fat. So he had her heat up the goose grease. He might have mixed some pork fat with it too, but I can't remember for sure. And he burnt the hole out, you know, while I held the hoof up, and he burnt it out, cleaned it out, then he poured the hot fat into it, not like bubbling hot because I let it cool enough so it wouldn't. And in 2 weeks, my pony was sound.
Wow.
You know, that's crazy.
That is crazy.
Do you know anybody else who knows that story? I don't.
Never, not once have I ever heard anything like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, so I know.
Well,
but there's lots like that.
So, kind of along those lines, do you have like, we'll call it like a favorite herb or herbal concoction that you use yourself that you would recommend? Like, what does it do? Like, what are the effects? Do you have something you use on the day to day just for general health and wellness?
Well, I take organic black seed oil and I swish my mouth with it like it's mouthwash for 1 to 5 minutes, and that pulls pathogens, bacteria, etc. out of your gums and your mouth. I also use so many different things every day. I make my own tooth powder and it has zeolite in it. When you mentioned herbs, like we don't just use herbs, we use ancient mineral beds also, like from the ancient biomes and the seabeds, and we grind them up and use those. And so I make it out of zeolite, food grade diatomaceous earth, bentonite, and then I add the herbs in it for, that we use for worming, like cloves, cinnamon, roasted torii seeds, a Chinese herb that cracks the egg, the parasite. So I make a mouth powder, and I brush my teeth with that, and I brush my tongue. And what else do I use? Well, I like drinking herb tea. I love hibiscus. It's really good for high blood pressure. It's antioxidant. I use a lot of berries, like bilberries, blueberries, every day in my diet. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was kind of reading your bio a little bit earlier, and I have so tell me a little bit about your work with like the herbs and natural remedies and things, and sewage. That's kind of a big question for me. Like what have you done with this sewage? Like, what are you doing with it? Are you recycling? Are you telling me there's a way to purify my poo water with oregano? Like what?
Okay.
What's going on there?
Well, look up the plant Yucca shittigera. It can't be Yucca filamentosa, which is similar, but it's not got the same properties. So Yucca shittigera. So Yucca
sounds
shittigera.
Like something that is involved with poo water.
I know it does. Yeah, and anciently it was used because it's a natural sudsor, so they used it as soap. But it has the ability for crops. You put it on the crops and it causes the root system to grow deeper and take more water. Okay, that's Yucca shittigera, but it's an extract. And then the extract of Yucca shittigera, if you have like a sewage pond or a slaughterhouse or whatever, pig farm, you spray it on there or put it in the pond or put it in your sewage tank, and it has the ability to inhibit the H2S gases that are released into the air, and then it increases the natural microbial growth by like millions, billions, whatever. So
wow.
You could say it's a prebiotic. If you take it, it's a prebiotic, but if you put it in sewage, it speeds up that bacteria, encompasses the H2S gas, so it reduces the smell, so it's healthier for the animals, and then it breaks down the sewage quicker.
Oh, wow.
So that it can be used as compost or whatever, like that. And so we toured slaughterhouses and sewage plants and garbage dumps in Thailand, Malaysia, South America, and did presentations with them through the Canadian government and the small business organization. I forget what it's called in Canada. Here it's the SBA. Yeah. So.
Wow, that's
still out there. That's
wild. That's something to think about for sure.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in getting people's tales, people's stories. You already told me a couple of interesting tales that kind of But is there like is there like a wild tidbit or factoid or story kind of pertaining to your career that really stands out in your mind? You know, maybe a cool discovery or a hardship you have overcome, or maybe a person, place, or thing that kind of just stands out in your mind, for better or worse. Is there any?
Wow, there's so many people who have impacted my life in a positive way. And one story, I did a 3-day course on natural hoof trimming. Dr. Hiltrud Strasser came from Europe. She really started the barefoot movement in North America. This was 30 years ago. And she, you know, in the class, I told her I was an herbalist, and it was in Pennsylvania. I took the class while I was living in New Jersey. And she said, could you ever make me a hoof softener for trimming hard hooves that doesn't have formaldehyde in it? Because apparently a lot of the hoof conditioners and stuff have formaldehyde. And, you know, it goes up the horse's leg to their throat. It can cause, I mean, so many things. And so I was doing all the herb mixing myself. I had a warehouse in my backyard, my children in the front yard, and the New Jersey government wouldn't allow me to hire anybody, which, you know, because I was in a residential neighborhood, right? So I got really sick. I was lifting 50, 100-pound barrels, and the yucca, I became very allergic to it.
Oh,
I used
really?
to sell it, yeah. It's one of the herbs you really need to wear a mask with. So I had a mask. It was one of the big ones, because back then they didn't have those small N95s. And I would take it off because, you know, it hurt my head.
Sometimes it's difficult to work with, yeah.
Yeah.
I work with those kind of masks a lot, actually.
Yeah, and so I got sick. And my face turned orange, bright orange. And the skin on my throat was like paper thin. And my eyelids swelled up, wrinkled, and were like hanging down on my cheeks. Like I could barely see out of my eyes, and I felt sick. So I went to a medical doctor, and they said, we think you have adrenal cancer. And I was there with my children. And so I thought, oh goodness me, what am I gonna do if I die? You know, my kids aren't gonna have anything. And so I prayed. And, you know, God told me, he said, you know, to make this formula for Dr. Strasser, and it would be a legacy for your children. So I made the formula he told me what to do to put it. I had ideas, but I wasn't sure. And he really did tell me how to make it. And while I was making it and experimenting with it, I noticed it made my skin really soft. Because, you know, we want it to make the horse's hoof soft, right?
Right.
For trimming. So it started to firm up my face, and it took the orange out of my face, and so I edited it slightly for humans to spray on their face. And so that's a pretty cool story of a product that's really excellent and works. But I'm a small business owner, and I spent many years just taking care of my 5 kids, so I've never been able to grow the business.
Right.
I've never had the funding to do that. So I'm at a position in my life where that's what I'm focusing on.
Right.
Because I'd like to have a retirement.
Yeah.
And I'd like to continue to do the work I do. We're doing a project in Africa right now. Like, I'm not getting paid anything, or we're just investigating that, using traditional medicines and making formulas to help starving people, if you know.
Wow. That's incredibly noble.
We're not there yet, but that's what we're working on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so all right, let's talk briefly about some ways your kind of entrepreneurship has affected our community. You mentioned kind of in your bio, you're being committed to compostable and recyclable packaging in the manufacturing of your products. Do you manufacture your own?
Right here in Salmon.
Really?
Yeah.
You've got your own packaging?
We've always done that.
Wow.
I mean, everything's made by hand. We have a food grade mixer, and you know, I had the plastic jars and the fancy labels and all that stuff, and they kept changing the laws. So I ended up throwing out $10,000 worth of fancy labels that I bought. And then the plastic is no good for the environment. It's not good for the herbs. And it's expensive to ship it in, expensive to ship it out. So we went to these paper bags. They look like, until something better comes along, which I hope it does, so they're like lunch bags, but the inside of the bag is coated with like a plastic polymer made from plants.
Oh, wow.
So plastic never touches the herbs, and you can take the tie off the bag and throw it in your compost or burn it or whatever you want to do.
Wow. That's
And
incredible.
so yeah, we're really committed to that, and I've been waiting for 15 years for the magical bottle to put our liquids in that's compostable. They say it's out there, but I haven't seen it. Have you?
No, this is all news to me. I read you the brief blurb on everything I know about herbs. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of in that same vein, you've created some jobs here as well. Is that right?
Yes.
You, including employing some handicapped and special needs folks around here. How did all that kind of come about?
Well, small business, and I never did pay the minimum wage here. I always paid a higher wage, and I'm not at high wage now. I'm, but just because of the wage thing. But people needed work, and a lot of it was part time, and we patiently worked with people. Like, we were patient. Because, I've paid people lots of money to work for me, and the quality of their work wasn't any different than the people who wanted a part-time job and needed something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it depends on the individual for sure.
It does,
I see
yeah.
that a lot, especially in our local, we'll call it labor pool.
Yeah,
Sometimes we hire some guys that are worth more than their salt, and other times we just kind of watch the clock, like how long is this guy going to last?
Right.
So
Yeah,
I feel
that's
you.
happened a lot, and no judgment, because we're all on a different path going to the same place.
Right.
And so, we're all brothers and sisters.
For sure. Okay, so you mentioned one of your goals, one of your personal goals is letting people know how to utilize herbs in everyday living for themselves and their animals. Do you have any general advice for the people out there? Perhaps a good place to start? If somebody is interested in doing stuff like this, where do they go? Who do they?
Okay, so my two favorite books are Back to Eden by Jethro Kloss,
Okay.
and A Modern Herbal, which was, I think, written in the 1920s by Mrs. M. Grieve. And those are two really good books to start with. I have a bunch of the newer ones, and I just feel they're not as good as those old ones, because in Back to Eden, he gives you all kinds of recipes, and he tends to use soy more than maybe I like, but those are two really good books. And then just Cooking Clean, don't eat anything out of a package. If you're allowed, have chickens in your backyard. Even if you don't have a place for a garden and you got a little balcony and apartment, grow herbs, grow them over your sink. Just do whatever you can to fill your house with plants that are functional plants.
Okay. Wow.
That's what I think. Anyway.
All right.
Yeah.
So, can you tell me what are sustainable wildcraft herbs? What is it?
Okay, so we applied for a value-added production grant, which fits that category, and we got the grant. So there's a lot of sage around here. It's
Right.
a different variety than what I'm used to in Canada. But so we wildcrafted the herbs, and I have native family. I adopted them, they adopted me, and I was given the rights to use sage. And so, I hired people to harvest the sage, and I told them less than 1/3 of the plant. And then every time they started work, they were, to pour some water. I was told to leave a little tobacco, or you could leave, it doesn't have to be nicotine tobacco, it could be anything like that. And they always did that. And so the sagebrush was never compromised. It's still it's flourishing. It probably helped it grow actually by taking some of it off.
So it's the process of just harvesting the plant, but not enough of it enough to get what you need out of it, but not enough to actually harm or damage the plant.
Right.
Okay, that
right.
makes sense. That
like
makes sense.
footprint, right?
Yeah.
Leave a good footprint.
Okay, so so I have to ask, just because of the youth today, as well as it being probably one of the most politicized herbs in this day and age, marijuana, is that even considered an herb? Do you have
Sure,
any,
it's an herb.
do you have any thoughts or opinions
Okay,
on
well,
like the legality or
I told you.
or maybe even tidbits on its uses?
Okay, so in the 1920s, when the College of Physicians and Surgeons was taken over, also America was full of hemp crops.
Right.
Okay, we used it for food, for fuel, for forage for our animals, for making clothing, and I've never really studied it out, and it's kind of confusing to me, but apparently there's different strains. So the actual, maybe hemp they used had, I think, a very low percentage of THC. And I think marijuana, cannabis, sativa, whatever, has been used for thousands of years for different purposes. Like when I was pretty young studying herbalism, I ended up with some marijuana seeds, live ones, like they weren't sprouted or anything. And I had read in one of the old books that a cure for pneumonia was you boil the seeds, and you have to have a lot of them, in raw milk, and then you strain it, and you use that as a natural medicine for pneumonia and bronchitis. And then I looked into it further, and I learned that some type of form of THC is what they used to use in the hospitals for pneumonia.
Yeah.
Where did that go?
Like if you look at
Where is that?
If you look at the old timey Western bottles, it's like
Yeah.
it has a wide variety of ingredients. Some of it's marijuana extract or a high percentage of even like alcohol, or even some cocoa plants, which is basically one of the main ingredients in cocaine.
Exactly.
So,
like when I was a kid, I think they had just taken the coca out of the Coke,
yeah.
But prior to that,
beverage.
it actually had it in it.
Oh wow!
And
I'll put some pep to your step, I guess.
Yeah, and all this hybridizing the government has control of, it's it's not the original strains of the marijuana. I don't even know where you can find them, if they're out there even, but it's not the same, and it's altering. They've made the THC too high, and I think it's designed not to make us not well. That's what I think, and it's just like opium poppies. You can make opium out of opium poppy seeds, and like everything is there that we used for thousands of years, but it got misused, and then power and greed and money and addiction, it all played into it. So we have to kind of rise above all of that and look logically around of what's really going on and what can be helpful and what can be not. Like, I would never say to somebody, oh, smoke pot or whatever like that, because I believe that you can get through life without using things as a crutch,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Like your spirituality, deep breathing. And I'm not saying I haven't been addicted to things, because, every human struggles in some way, right?
We all fight our demons for sure.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
sure. Okay, well, that's kind of, we're going to try to wrap this up, but in closing, do you have any final comments, or perhaps like an email or a website, any interested parties that maybe reach out to you to find out more?
Well, our website is herbsoftheworld.com, and our email is herbsoftheworld@gmail.com. And if you, Google us, you'll find, our door address and everything in Salmon, Idaho. We're only open to the public Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We really don't have hardly any business here in Salmon. We just manufacture and ship.
Okay.
And I'm sad to say my building looks like it's abandoned because it's a pretty big property, and the building was really old when I bought it, and I've never put siding on it. It's too old to spray the wood, it would break it up.
Yeah.
And I've just never had, $35,000 to put in siding.
Yeah, that's.
And so, so it's as it is, but we are in that building, and I bought a nice new sign and the wind blew it down, so I just cut it up and tacked it on the side of the building, but we're there, and we would love to hear from anybody that's interested.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Thank you so much for coming in and talking to me today. It means a lot. It's pretty awesome. You've taught me a lot today in the short time we've been together.
Thank you.
So, okay, guys, that's it for this episode of TBP Talks. Thanks again to our guests. Thanks to my music tech, Jake Young, for the sound bits. Thanks to my lovely producer today, Asia G. If you have any questions or comments, topic suggestions, or even interested in maybe booking a spot on our show for yourself, send an email to brainpodbigtater@yahoo.com. We'll post that in the comments or description for any interested parties. Be sure to check us out on YouTube and or Spotify. Like, share, subscribe, and follow. It helps us out a lot. And until next time, keep on keeping on. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in the future.
Thank you.